What's up, guys? I bet you're watching this video because you have a Focus ST and you are interested in making it make cool turbo noises. And by that, I do not mean the blow-off valve going psh every 2 seconds, because I had a blow-off valve on my car that did that and I hated it and switched it out. So I'm going to go ahead and show you all of the different ways to maximize turbo noise on your Focus ST, such as spool and then also turbo flutter, which I know the comments are going to be filled with people saying turbo flutter is bad, but I will explain that because in this circumstance it's not. But the first thing, I guess this is more of a simple thing, as you can see right here, my car is just bare metal and it doesn't have that black thing in there, which it serves two purposes. One of them is heat protection from the hood, but I've never had any issues with that. But also the paint on my hood is already, I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, it's too dirty to see it. But the previous owner of my car had stripes on it, and it kind of messed up the clear coat. But it can protect, that black thing also protects your hood from heat and I guess damaging the paint, which I haven't really ever seen it do that. But the second purpose it has is sound deadening. And there's going to be one here, and there's also going to be one underneath your cowl here. It's just like a piece of foam cloth is black. Mine was hanging down anyways. All you got to do on here is there's some clips. Just put a screwdriver in the clips, pop them all off, take that sound deadening out from under your hood, and also take the sound deadening out from underneath the cowl here, and that will allow a lot more sound to get into the cabin but also escape outside of the car of your turbo. But you're not really going to get turbo noise unless you have an intake, so that is another step to doing this. You'll want an aftermarket intake filter. This is a Cobb filter here. You can just buy a complete cold air intake. Mine's kind of pieced together. This is the stock intake box, and I've cut it and put a seal on it here to kind of seal out the heat. It seals up against the hood here, and then it's open. And having a lot of people just take this cover off, but I cut mine so I could seal out the heat, and I have a video on that if you want to see how to do that. And then I also have this aftermarket Cobb intake filter, which lets in a lot more flow for air. So that's the main thing you'll want to start with. You don't necessarily need a whole new intake on your Focus ST if it's stock turbo, but you should put a new filter in. So I put this new filter in, cut the box, and then I also have this aftermarket intake tube here. I put that heat tape on it. I don't know if it works, but the intake was dinged up anyways, so it just covered up the bad paint job because I got it pretty cheap. And then I just used this elbow here to attach it. So it's kind of like my own DIY intake, but an easy way to take care of that is just buy a cold air intake, and that will get you a lot of turbo spool noise when you get on the gas. But also if you have the right setup, it will get you turbo flutter too. And I'll tell you how to get that. But those are basically the two ways to amplify the noise, because you want the noise amplified as much as possible, because once you get it to flutter, you want to actually be able to hear it. So you'll need a cold air intake with a somewhat open box setup, and you can also take out the sound deadening on the hood underneath the cowl if you would like to. And then now to getting the flutter. Now if there's different types of blow-off valves you can get for Focus ST. You have like a recirc valve or a diverter valve, which I actually have a diverter valve because I don't really like the loud psh noise. And this is all stock turbo. If you're a big turbo, this would be different because you have a different blow-off valve setup. But I'm assuming if you want more turbo noise, you're on stock turbo. But what you want to do is, depending on the type of blow-off valve you have, you can see I have this little red silicone piece here. This is the solenoid that controls the blow-off valve. And you can see here I have this metal block-off plate for the sound imposer. That is just the thing that pumps engine noise into the cabin, and I hated how it sounds, so I got rid of that. But the two different types of blow-off valve, you have a diverter valve, which essentially, when it releases the pressure from the turbo, like the boost that's built up, it just recirculates it back into the system instead of venting it out loud. An atmosphere vent blow-off valve is the ones that make the psh noise, and those are really loud, and they just vent all the pressure out of the car and not back into it. But a recirc valve or diverter valve keeps the air all in the system, and that's actually probably a better choice for this car because it'll keep a little bit of boost in between shifts, which I felt it a little bit whenever I switched out, I had a Boomba blow-off valve and I switched it out for a Go Fast Bits DV Plus. So that is the one that I run, and that's the one that I get my turbo flutter on, which I'll show you an example in a little bit. But I run the Go Fast Bits DV Plus, which is just the diverter valve. They make another one that's adjustable, and such as like the Turbo Smart blow-off valve for these cars, it's a mix between atmosphere vent and a diverter valve. So it's 50-50. 50 of it vents to atmosphere, 50 of it recirculates. And so you still get the psh noise, but you can also get the flutter noise because it recirculates. And on my Boomba blow-off valve, I was able to get a little bit of flutter by routing it to true vacuum. Now this is kind of hard to explain, so if you want to know how to route your blow-off valve to true vacuum, you can check out my video on that. If you scroll a little bit back, you can see the video on how to do that. But I've actually undone it. I used to have this when I had my Boomba blow-off valve. It was routed to true vacuum, but now it's not. I have it returned back to factory. And where this red hose was, you just block off one of these sides with just like a little cap, and then you'll run the vacuum line down here to an adapter you can buy to your intake. And that basically tells the blow-off valve to go off whenever there's too much pressure, because the vacuum is connected here to the intake manifold. But if the factory one, it's electronic, so that solenoid tells it when to release the pressure electronically, and that happens a lot more often. It just goes psh, psh, psh every single time you let off the gas, and I got super tired of it. So I ended up getting that diverter valve, which is a lot quieter, and that makes it to where all of the noise comes out of your filter right here, because it's just open and connected to the turbo right there. So that's where you get all the noise from. So having the diverter valve, and then you set it to a little bit of a stiffer setting. You don't want it to be too stiff. You can go back to my diverter valve install video to see how to set it up and everything, but you do not want it too stiff, because then it won't vent pressure when it's supposed to. But whenever I let off the gas, if I build boost a little bit, now it doesn't flutter all the time. You don't want it to flutter when it's under a lot of load. So that's kind of where I adjusted it. I researched on the forums and then kind of figured out what's best for me. But you can go back in my video and see how to do that. But whenever I go like full throttle and do like a full pull and it builds full boost and I let off the gas, it does not turbo flutter. You do not want it to do that, because that is too much flutter under load, and that is where it does damage, not necessarily damage, but it'll put extra wear on your turbo. So you don't want that. So when I do that, it just kind of lets off like a slight psh noise. You can't really even hear it. But whenever I'm going, like if I build like half boot, like a little bit of boost, and I don't do like a full pull, and then I let off the gas, you'll hear like that sto-do-do-do like flutter noise that everybody wants, and that comes out of the intake. And the reason you can hear it is because I've taken out, you can still hear it without the sound deadening removed, but it just makes it a lot louder. So that is how you get the turbo flutter noise, either routing a atmosphere vent blow-off valve to true vacuum, or you can just get a diverter valve, and I have it back to the factory setup here. And then you just adjust it to where you get enough flutter to where it's stiff enough to where it doesn't vent, and it lets the air recirculate and go back, and it hits the turbo wheel in there, the turbo fan, and that's what makes the flutter noise that everybody wants. So that's pretty much everything that goes into getting turbo flutter on your Focus ST. It's also just kind of a matter of adjusting things and playing with things until you find a setup that you like. But this is my setup. You can debate down in the comments if turbo flutter is bad for your car. I know someone's going to say it, but it's really not. I've had my car like this for over a year, and I haven't had a single issue. And you also see like a lot of like high horsepower turbo builds. Some of them don't even run a blow-off valve, and they just let it recirculate. Obviously it's not good for the turbo, but it'll be fine. If anything, it just wears on a little bit more, but in this circumstance it really doesn't, and it sounds cool. So it's basically the trade-off you want to make. I like having my car sound cool, and it's not too obnoxious. It's pretty, I mean, like, you can definitely hear it. I've had people notice it when I drive by and stuff, but it's not near as obnoxious as the people who have the psh blow-off valves. They go off all the time. So that's pretty much it for this video and how to get turbo flutter on your Focus ST. Please leave a like and comment below, and thanks for watching, and follow me on Instagram at Nickjoenap, and I will see you in the next video.